One thing that I didn't recognize when I started my fundraising was that you really do want the quantity of money all up front. So I've raised, around about $1 million, just shy of pounds, right? And I've done it in like 200K, 300K. Some of our investors have tranched the money in. So you have, 125, and then 3 months later, you get another 125. That is one of the things that I now tell other founders. I had a founder friend who said, they want to give me money, but they want to do it in 4 tranches, 200K in 4 tranches. And I was like, no, run, because you don't know where you're going to need to move budget around next. Like, you set your budget, you think you'll be fine, but you might land that big contract, or you might have a huge opportunity, or something might break in the product, or somebody might leave and you need to pay a bit more for their replacement. That has definitely impacted our ability to growth. Like, the cost to delay is huge. So my thoughts is when an investor says to me, we tranche our payments, it's like, run. Just don't do that.
Dash, welcome to the show. You're the CEO and founder of TUBR. I've got a few notes to really make sure that I describe exactly what you do really well. So, TUBR is a predictive analytics platform turning small data into big insight for businesses. You started out solving London's packed tube problem, and then built out a physics-driven machine learning engine that can forecast with as little as 20% of the usual data. Now, there's a full story in here, so we're going to go right to the beginning. Okay. You got the London Tube here today. Talk me through how sort of going onto the tube started your journey with TUBR.
Yeah, I guess pre-pandemic is really when I started thinking there's just like modern day societal annoyances like an armpit in your face on the London Underground. And I would get on the tube every morning and I'd just be crammed. And what I started to realize was that if I left at different times, I'd have different experiences. And that it could be anywhere from like 3 to 5 minutes of a difference of standing in an aisle or standing in the middle section where everybody crams in, or having a seat. And so started diving into the data and saying, okay, well, what are these trends? How can we understand? How can we manage these crowding problems? And as I was diving into that, I thought, why don't we just, we'll build an app. We'll tell people to travel at different times. Will people actually change their behaviors? And while I was having these ideas, the pandemic hit, which obviously changed the entire world and how we traveled and what we do. And coming back onto public transport was a really slow movement. There's a lot of anxiety. And that's when I really started to see that, like, that particular societal annoyance was just one of the many things. So decided to start building this app and realized that you need lots and lots of data to use machine learning and AI, and that there were just businesses, 85% of businesses will never collect enough data to use machine learning and AI. And so there's this huge opportunity for us to be able to build machine learning that can actually solve the majority of businesses' problems. And that's where we landed today.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, that's incredible, isn't it? I mean, every single person, like worldwide listening, but let's take London as an example. I can leave my house at 8:12 and have a blissful commute, crossing over a couple of different tube lines, getting seats, not worried. It even feels like it's nice and cool. Whilst if I leave 20 minutes later, around, let's say, 8:45, my commute, one, will probably be longer, feel more delayed, and I'll definitely be more stressed and hot and bothered by the time I get to sort of the office, because I don't get a seat and I have to stand up. So as you say, there's like super fine sort of details. By the way, that is an app that I feel like everyone wants. That, they need to know definitively by the science that if they leave their house at a certain time or get on the tube from their preferred tube stop at the exact time. But obviously with COVID, sort of things out of your control there, very much so. in terms of the machine learning approach for small businesses, now machine learning is something which I think a lot of people go, yes, I know what machine learning is. And then you'll ask them, okay, what is machine learning? And they probably won't describe what machine learning is. So tell us definitively what machine learning is, and maybe why it isn't just for the big boys or the big businesses out there, which, as you say, collect so much data.
Yeah, well, I'm not the data scientist on the team, so I won't give a scientific answer to this. But really, the way I see machine learning is that it's able to predict what's likely to happen next using time series data. So time series data is data that's constantly flowing, and that is arriving. Traditionally, what machine learning would do is take a whole bunch of history and identify the trends and say, these are the factors or the correlations around the trends. And so if these factors and correlations are true, that trend is likely going to happen again. But in order to do that, and in order to take a statistical approach on it, you need lots and lots of data. But I think overall, machine learning is probably what most businesses need. I see machine learning as predicting the next stage, and then AI being able to apply the decisioning behind it, which is a distinct difference, even though it sits under the same umbrella.
Love it. Great answer. So how about an example? Could you describe maybe a current business you're working with, or a hypothetical situation of a business that everyone would understand, and how they could potentially use machine learning, and then we can have a hypothetical conversation around how they maybe use AI, which is of course right now and probably for the distant future the most hot topic on the press.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the areas that we're working in quite a lot right now is in hospitality, and really that experience economy. So where people want to go and spend their time, they want to spend their time at a cafe, at a restaurant, at one of the experiences, bowling, for example. They want to be able to take that train to their holiday or the fun places that they go, and one of the ways that we can do that is predict, well, for that cafe, how many croissants do they need that day? How many staff do they need behind the bar, as opposed to serving at a table? How do you move that around? It helps those companies manage their space. If you were to look at kind of where do you need machine learning versus AI, I think what we typically do is a bit of a combination of the two. So we can predict how many transactions you'll have every hour, how many croissants you're going to sell every hour, how many coffees, etc. But then if you want to know, well, what's the right price for that, you would add an element of AI on the top of that so that it can understand, well, this is the best price, or these are the best number of people, or this is how many transactions your staff can handle. So you're taking that, what's likely going to happen, and then adding that aspect of, well, what do I do with it? And I think it's striking that balance of understanding, when do I just need to know what's next, and when do I want it to tell me what to do?
Awesome. So I can hear the audience shouting, at their screens or their phones or into their sort of earbuds as they're listening, and go, oh yeah, but that doesn't count for me. I'm running a small business, bakery, and I've only been going for a couple of months. Like, how much data does that everyday sort of business actually require to make this sort of analysis? Because that looks amazing. That sounds amazing to me. I would love to know from my inventories, for my sort of staff workload. Every business in my head would need this sort of analysis. Mm-hmm. So how much data is actually needed for sort of that type of business? For
cafes, restaurants, we typically say we'd like you to have at least 100 to 150 transactions a day. We are making predictions on a very small cafe that has about 17 transactions a day. However, and we were really excited when we made the breakthrough where we were actually getting predictions. The accuracy is not great yet. But if a company has about 100 to 150 a day, then we can typically see somewhere in the 80% accuracy. And it's continuous learning, so it gets better over time. So a lot of it depends on history. We typically say we'd like at least 3 months history in order to just get to a point where we think that the results we would give you is something that we would be happy for you to trust to make a decision off the back of.
This episode is sponsored by Opus. Opus brings entrepreneurs together to create opportunity through power of connection. Opus is a curated community for business builders who understand that relationships are the backbone of business and success. If you are an entrepreneur, founder, business builder, laser focused on a mission, Opus could be for you too. To find out more, go to joinopus.org. Now back to the show. So, lots of tech in there. You said yourself, you're not a coder, you're not technical, you're not a data scientist. So, how did you go about building such a technical product?
Yeah, that's a good question. My background is data product management. So I actually like to say I was a data product manager before they were cool. I was working at a company and we had lots of data, and the data didn't work unless it was in the product. And I was basically managing how this data got into all the products, how it worked for the customer, what data sets needed to be there, and then went out and decided, well, I have such good skills, I'll go get another job. And everyone told me, data product manager, who wants those skills? Which I think is hysterical, because about 3 years later, people were saying, how do we hire for this role?
Yeah,
We need a data product
100%.
manager. So that's kind of how I transitioned over. And I think from my perspective, product manager sits in the middle between the development and the market. So being able to write requirements that very clearly say, this is what the product needs to do, even though it didn't exist and we were having to create it. I was able to hire smart people. I had a co-founder in the business early on who was a physicist and a data scientist, and he was the one that really had the breakthrough of how do we bring these theorems together in order to build this algorithm. And then we hired, a very smart PhD to take it from there. So, so I think it's just being able to communicate clearly is how I get around my technical difficulties.
Awesome. I mean, there's also a bit here where you leave a good job and you go, I want to do this. I want to go solve this problem. And it then takes you over a year to actually build out this platform and business, really. Was that something you decided from the off, that you just went, we actually need to go from A to B here before we can really even get going? Or was it a case of along the way and now you look back at it and go, oh wow, we really did need that period of time? Because I think a lot of people would go, leave a good paying job, security, to do a business is scary enough, let alone go, well, actually, I'm going to need to pump a load of money into this and time and energy, sweat, love and tears for over a year before actually being able to go to market. Like how looking back on it, how was that decision made? Or did it kind of just, you were left with no decision except for to do that?
I was so blind. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I thought I had a good network and a lot of skills. And I think I was just frustrated at working in jobs where I could see the opportunity, but then I wasn't able to go after the opportunity. So when the pandemic hit and I had more time on my hands, I thought, well, this is probably the time to go for it, right? When else am I going to be locked inside a house for 2 years and have time to work on this and see where I can get it? So, and like in hindsight, I think I was very naive. I think I maybe questioned in moments like, why did I do that? But it's very rewarding. Like, I think, yeah, it's very rewarding. I mean, some of my absolute best friends now I wouldn't have met if I hadn't gone on this journey. I can't imagine not having it, but the decision to make the jump was probably just pure stupidity. I don't know.
Well, I mean, look, sometimes a bit of blind faith goes a long way. But you've definitely not had an easy ride. So let's talk about a couple of those. So starting the business during COVID around 2020, took a year to build the product. Now fast forward a year, you thought, amazing, we're in the market, we're going really well. And then everyone always talks about the macro environment, and people talk about maybe politics or wider areas of business which maybe make the headline news affecting them and their business. But not quite like what happened to you in 2022. Do you want to discuss how from one day things were looking pretty good and literally the next they weren't looking so good?
Yeah, I think what's quite interesting with like everything. I think in some ways, I've rebuilt the business a couple times. The first time, which it took us a little while to get going and find the right team and build, and then to be on a path where we had brought in our first couple customers. We had these really big deals on the table, and then the basically a governmental decision around budgets, which people might be able to figure out on their own, just crashed the economy, and it crashed the company. Actually, those companies that I was working with don't exist anymore. So they lost, their funding and their customers and their products. And I mean, I guess it was a lot more devastating than it was for us. But I probably lost about $500K in a day. And I went from having this like half-baked product that I'd figured out how to sell. I mean, it was like V1 of the algorithm, right? That I'd figured out how to sell, and being like, great, this is wonderful. We can kind of bootstrap. I think we were lucky in the sense that we just closed about $200K in investment, angel, and then an American VC. So we had money in the bank, which allowed us to say, okay, we had kind of started to see early product market fit here. We were kind of selling, and we didn't really know, but money was going to be coming in, and we were going to have time to figure it out too. Okay, good thing we have this little pot of money. The rest of the round didn't come in. The rest of the round pulled out. So I lost about $500K sitting on my sofa one day and thought, okay, well, what am I going to do? And was able to take a step back and say, all right, I've been out there telling people what we've been building for a little while. A lot of people have come to me and said, well, can you use it for this? Can you use it for this? Can you use it for this? And we basically created a Miro board of who has asked us if we could use it for this. And then we started working our way around that Miro board, testing the market and seeing like, where's the hair on fire problem? And I think we were blessed in that sense. But yeah, that was the first big blow. There's been a couple.
Yeah, so I mean, at that point, you were pretty much solely working in the transport sector, but you'd had conversations with other verticals, maybe because you set out to do one vertical and do it well. That was where all your contacts and your sort of sales and business had come from, and partnerships. But then, but the sort of political standpoint that we were talking about was Liz Truss's budget, when that happened in 2022, which overnight, had a huge impact into your business, which is horrible to see. Let's go straight into the next big blow. So a bit later on, your technical co-founder, who you'd built this business with over a sort of few years, had a really big health scare and had to step away from the business.
Yeah, very quickly. I knew that he had a lot going on. Again, we were in the middle of a fundraise. I knew he had a lot going on, but when we had checked in with each other, he had said, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Like, everything's fine. And we, again, had just closed 2 customers, and everything was kind of looking up. And then 5 days before the final investment committee meeting, where all the investment was going to be signed off, we were raising $500K. He texted me and said, I'm sorry, I can't do it. I'm going to have to leave 5 days before. And I was like, oh, no. Okay. So I got on the phone with him. We worked out how he was going to leave, what that was going to look like. We got all the legal side taken care of. And then I got on a call with my existing investors, and I said, this is the situation. I think the only way I'll keep the new investors in is if you all come in. So they all committed $100K. And then I went to the new investors, and they said, yeah, we'll come in. It was a less amount. We ended up raising 385, I think. But I was able to close that round. But then at that point, I had no tech team. It was literally just me and a junior developer who hadn't even seen our primary code. I found out after the fact. So he'd been working on something else. for reasons I'm not sure about. But so he dived in and he got his head around the code, and then we were able to hire our current lead data scientist now, who's fantastic, and he was able to wrap his head around the code. But that was actually quite tricky too. We talked to about 17 different data scientists and gave them snippets to figure out if they were the right ones. And some of these people were very senior, and they couldn't crack it. So that's also when I knew, okay, all right, well, we obviously have something very complex here. So we brought in our lead data scientist, and then we started rebuilding again. So
And how long was this between the pivot of sort of the 2022 where you're now exploring other verticals, and your co-founder at the time having to sort of lead the business?
probably 8 months.
So within a year,
Yeah,
the
8 months to a
entire
year.
business has pivoted, and then effectively, because of those external challenges, the business gods sort of said, "Okay, we're going to give you some internal challenges too, just
Yeah.
to,
Make it
complete."
a little more exciting.
Yeah, complete the pie, and then you're having to rebuild the team. Like, maybe to go kind of straight to the point, but was there a moment there, especially after that second hit, the second blow, where you're just like, whew, like I maybe I shouldn't be doing this anymore. I don't want to be doing this anymore.
Yeah.
Like look, founders, to be successful, we all know you have to be exceptionally resilient, but there is a lot of hits in a boxing match that one can take. So how are you feeling at that time?
Like a shell of a human. No, I think I had quite a lot of like personal stuff going on, like on my side as well. So it really did feel like quite a lot of just everything like exploding all at once in my face. But I guess the one thing that taught me and that really helped is I was able to let go, and I was able to kind of detach myself from this is who I am as a person. So my business is very much wrapped up in me and my life and everything that I'm doing. And I put it first in everything. I mean, my poor husband, he just has to accept that in a lot of cases. I am better now than I was then, but
We'll get him on the phone and ask him if that's the case.
yeah, we can do it. It'd be good to see know his answer. But I think I was able to detach, and I just kind of came at peace with, if this is going to finish, I want to finish well. I want to do right by my one employee at that point in time. I want to do right by my co-founder that's leaving, and I want to do right by my shareholders and my existing investors. And I still believed in the business. I still believed in the opportunity. And I thought, these are the things that I have to do to know that if it doesn't work out, I finished it well. And so I just focused on that. And I think in some ways, I was able to like see more clearly. But there was one point I'd raised all the money. I was 10K short. If I didn't have 10K by the end of the day, it was over. And I mean, I was calling up every single investor that I possibly could and sending out all these emails. And I woke up at 3 a.m. and I'd send out all these emails. And then I got a call at 10 a.m. from my junior dev saying, hey, I can't log into anything. And it turns out that my co-founder had missed the payment to pay for our domains, and the domains had been locked out. Oh. And that the domains weren't owned by me, they were owned by him, but he was unavailable. He had stepped away for his personal reasons and was could not be contacted. I contacted his mom or his sister, his girlfriend, and they were like, we can't get in touch with him. We can't access him. It's like, okay. And so I'm calling these domain companies and I'm like, I need to find 10K by the end of the day. I do own the domains. You have to turn it back on. Like, help me. And finally I found this one guy in the company that was like, I'm going to turn it on for you for 30 days, but you have to get it sorted by then. And I was like, oh, phew, okay, here we go. And as I was walking, I remember I was walking from Putney East Station home, and I just was like, that's it. I'm done. Like, I don't even know if these people that I emailed this morning, like, I just don't know that I can do it. And I swear there's like this voice came from somewhere that just said, keep going. just keep going. And I thought, okay, all right, I'm going to keep going. I was like, I think it's my grandfather just being like, don't stop, keep going. And so I got home and I was like, all right, if I can pull this off, then I'm supposed to keep going. And it's been quite a roller coaster since then. I mean, we've had quite a few hard knocks since then, but nothing to that effect.
Well, look, a walk down the River Thames clearly helped you out there. So you closed the 10K.
I did. I don't remember. I think one of my existing investors said, no. I think somebody emailed me back and was like, yeah, I'll do it. 10K, here you go. It was one of those things that, like, I got the domains turned back on and the first email in was, yeah, I'll take it.
Oh.
I don't know if anybody emailed me in that period of time.
the relief in that. So maybe it was just that walk. You need to clear your head, and then, you know, a watch pot will never boil. So you know.
Well, people were telling me, they're like, just put it on a credit card. Just take out cash on a credit card. And I was just like, I don't know that that's a good idea. I mean, I know a lot of times people do that. I personally don't work well when I know I have like a lot of debt to pay. So I was like, that's not the best way for me to continue on. But yeah.
Cool. So let's look at fundraising as a topic in general. I think you've raised approximately $1 million over the course of the business's lifetime. It's hard. Like, raising funds is a full-time job in itself, and you're running the business, and you were going through sort of multiple different roller coaster ups and downs. So what's the trick? Like, now you've raised that amount of cash. Let's say you were going to go raise that exact same amount in one round tomorrow. What would you do better? And maybe the advice, a lot of the audience that listens to this show may have never fundraised, maybe going for their first 100K check or $1 million check, whatever that looks like for them. What did you do really badly, and maybe what did you do really well, but actually maybe didn't realize it at the time that you did really well?
Oh, goodness. One thing that I didn't recognize when I started my fundraising was that you really do want the quantity of money all up front. So I've raised, around about $1 million, just shy of pounds, right? And I've done it in like 200K, 300K. Some of our investors have tranched the money in. So you have, 125, and then 3 months later, you get another 125. That is one of the things that I now tell other founders. I had a founder friend who said, oh, they want to give me money, but they want to do it in 4 tranches, 200K in 4 tranches. And I was like, no, run, because you don't know where you're going to need to move budget around next. Like, you set your budget, you think you'll be fine, but you might land that big contract, or you might have a huge opportunity, or something might break in the product, or somebody might leave and you need to pay a bit more for their replacement. That has definitely impacted our ability to growth. Like, the cost to delay is huge. So my thoughts is when an investor says to me, oh, well, we tranche our payments, it's like, run. Just don't do that. Overall, it's not what you want. I think that's one of the things I didn't understand and I made a mistake on. I think one of the things I did well is being a female raising. There's just an unspoken bias that I think most people don't recognize. Yeah. Sometimes it's super blatant.
I mean, I think the stat is 2% of VC funding goes to female founders.
I think it might be even less than that.
Approximately
right
2%.
Now.
Yeah, it is so low.
Yeah, it's so low, which is crazy because we actually return more on the dollar too. I don't know the exact stats, but I think male-led businesses return like 67 cents on the dollar and females like 82 or something like that. So, and I do think part of that is because we are pushed to like be so resourceful and really think about, well, if this goes wrong, what would we do here? And if that went wrong here, you're really thinking out all your options and you're just being really like focused and dedicated. And we're forced to do that because raising investment, we just get all the hard questions. But one of the things I realized early on was that I had to understand the psychology behind what was going on, because I really do believe most of it is like an unconscious bias. It's not, you want to invest in people who are like you, that you relate to. It's the same with hiring and everything else. And I had realized while I was in previous like early career roles that I to ask for money as a female needed to be different. So when I was at Experian, I want a pay rise. I tried everything, and there's always reasons why. And finally, I listened to a podcast that said if women ask for a raise like a man, you're kind of seen as aggressive and selfish. But if you ask for a raise as for the team, then you're fulfilling your like nature role as a woman to care for everyone.
Oh, wow.
So I went in and I said, the whole team's underpaid. And within 18 months, I doubled my salary and the whole team got a raise. And so I thought, okay, I need to figure that out. And so I started looking into, well, what's happening in these investment situations with women as opposed to men, and discovered the promotive and preventive questions. So women get 80% of preventive questions. That's everything that can go wrong. And only like a handful of promotive questions, where men get majority promotive. Those are like your growth questions, the exciting things, everything that an investor wants to invest in. So if you can turn a preventative question into a promotive question, that's not saying don't answer the question, but just be able to spin it into a growth light, then typically women raise at the same rate as men. So that was one of the things I worked on really early on. But I think the other thing that I've learned is, and I saw a video as an exited founder, he said, build the house you want to live in. And I think as founders, we have to do a much better job saying no to terms that aren't right, that aren't growth terms, that aren't the partner, that aren't the mission. That money isn't just money. Money comes with things attached to it, relationships, opportunities, everything. And you're going to be in this business for God knows how long. And these people are going to basically become you're in a marriage with them, right? There's no getting them. The only way you get them off your cap table is to buy them out, which is really hard, to exit, or to end it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's even harder than divorce. Divorce is easier than taking the wrong money. So that's the other thing that I think I'm really trying to focus on right now is like when I chat to an investor, like, is this someone I'd want to live in my house? Do I want to bring them in? Are they going to build the house I want to live in? It took me a really long time to get to that point where I can say, you know what, you're giving me money, but you're not your money. Not all money is equal.
I mean, investor alignment, right? It's so challenging, especially when you're in your time of need. Like you've had those where you're like kind of desperate for the cash. Now you're in a bit of a better position, right? So you can align easier to your values and align those values with investors. But have you ever said no to an investor who have gone, Dash, here's a pot of gold? At the time, that's what it would have felt like, right? And you've had to go, no, I don't want this cash.
We've had situations more recently where, cash flow's been tight. Particularly, we have a number of grants. So quite often with grants, you pay everything out up front. It can take a while to get paid back. And, but yeah, there was a situation where we were in dire need. It was getting pretty close to we're going to have to start having some hard conversations. And a term sheet landed on the table. But what it would have done is it would have wiped out all of my angels and existing investors. It would have wiped out me, the stock option pool. Well, it might maybe not completely me, but it would have made a pretty big impact on it. And it probably would have kept us from being able to raise further on. But I think the big thing for me was, we were literally like, I either take this money or on Friday we vote for insolvency. And
Wow.
You're looking at it, and I just wrote him back and said, no, I can't do it. And that's that. And I had to go to all my shareholders and explain what happened. And I told them what it would have been. And they were so pleased that I protected them that they came in with the money.
Unreal.
So, I think it just went back to that, like, build the house you want to live in. If I had taken that money, I couldn't have looked any of the people that has supported me early on in the face at the time that we succeed and say, well, actually, get anything.
Yeah.
There's nothing. You can continue to support me. You've helped me in every single way, but I made this choice without your consent. I couldn't do it. So it was hard. I like came home and I told my husband, and I was like, I don't think I'm paying the mortgage this month. And he was like, okay. and then it all worked out. So it's definitely, I think at this point I'd rather stick to my morals and do what I feel is the right thing than trade in and be a slave to someone else. I mean, it's hard enough as it is. You don't want to give away all your control and everything that goes along with it. So
For sure. So nicely aligned to morals, values, etc. Let's talk about your team.
yeah.
So you started the business in London, but you're now based in Sheffield.
Yes.
So for those that aren't from the UK, Sheffield's a town in the north of the country. So it's about a 2-hour train journey from central London. Most people would go the other way. They may maybe start in a sort of satellite of the city or of England, and then move into the big city. You went against the grain. You went the opposite way. So why did you move from sort of building that business in central London? The statistics around fundraising for in benefit of staying in London and moving away, it's harder to raise capital. Maybe even talent might be harder. Or is it? You tell me. Why did you move away?
A number of reasons. One, I find there's a lot of noise in London, and that every business, whether it's the right contact or not, is just trying to go for everything all the time. And when we were hiring, I thought we're just going to be a remote team. We're not going to have an office. And it's coming out of the pandemic. Nobody wanted to go back to the office. And so my first hire was in Sheffield, and I was taking the train up to sit in a Costa with him to be able to say, this is what we're doing. And he said, well, maybe we need to find a co-working space. And I thought, all right, do that. And so he went around, he found some co-working spaces, and one of them I say is like the Central Park of the Sheffield startup scene. Like if you sit in the lobby long enough, you will meet everybody that you need to know. And so they brought us in and said, you know what, use the co-working, we'll give you some credits, use the co-working space for free. I think those credits ran out in like 6 months, but I didn't pay for like a year. There's just like very much, this is your first space. And then as I got tapped into the ecosystem, where I was trying to get meetings with people, they have satellite offices outside of London, and I was getting intros into those meetings, and then they were like bringing the people from London to meet with me in Sheffield. And I thought, well, I've been in London trying to have the meetings with these exact people, but because I'm out of London, it's now a more exciting thing to work on or to work with. So I thought that's interesting. And then, you need an advisor or mentor in London, minimum £200 an hour, and probably more like 400 now, or, I'll pay you £1,000 for a day. And you spend a day with this person, you walk away with more questions. In Sheffield, all the business owners that have exited or had opportunities or run businesses want to volunteer their time. So they literally volunteer your time, and you can just pick them up, WhatsApp them, pick up, they'll sit down, work through the problem, say, well, when you get to the next problem or then do this, and then give me a call. And it's like just a lot more giving back. Then they have startup grants of being able, if you move your business into the area, you get money towards an office for a year. There's just lots of opportunity. I mean, the BBB is the British Business Bank is based there, so you get access into like meeting the people that are making the regulations for how those monies are going to go into the fund. There's just quite a lot happening, and they've just designated a whole bunch of money and told London VCs you can't invest it in London. You have to invest it outside. So being in a region right now has its ups and then it's downs. Like, yes. Hiring, though, in Sheffield hasn't been too hard, though, because there's 2 universities. So there's a lot of top talent. It's a great city because it's right there on the edge of the peaks. It's more affordable. Salaries are lower. I could go on. Those are all the reasons.
Amazing. Well, you mentioned the Peak District there. So is that something you do in your spare time? Do you go hiking? Like, founder balance. Like we talking about it off camera, and we're like, oh, what's balance when it
Yeah.
comes to being a founder? And we say it tongue in cheek to a point, because founders are a special breed of people, and I think you don't join this world or cult of being a founder for the pleasure of only working 1 day a week.
Yeah.
Maybe if that's your dream, you might get there.
Yeah.
But for the majority of everyday founders that are really trying to grind their way to sort of their goals, whatever they might be. So for you, Dash, what's that balance look like? And maybe you do get out and get into the wild and hike in the peaks, which is stunning if anyone's not done it.
It is yeah, it's amazing. I mean, you can take a train from the train station and do a circular and come back, and train ride's 10 minutes and 4 pounds. It's great. For me, I think it's something I'm still kind of trying to learn how to do a bit of balance. I'm definitely better. For me, I started working with like a founder life coach, business mentor person. I call him my therapist, a while ago. And he was really good. My first holiday after the raise where my co-founder had left, he said, I know you're going to work, but can we put some boundaries around what you do? And for me, it was so good for him to acknowledge, I know this is going to happen, so don't fight it. Everybody's telling you, go on holiday, don't work. And that's just adding more guilt. And like you have guilt for not working, you have guilt for working. Just let it all go and acknowledge you're going to work while you're doing this, but what boundaries can you put in place? And I think that was kind of the start of how do I have this work-life balance. So I try to say, I mean, depending on what's going on, but I try to say, like, I will go to the gym in the morning. I haven't been very good about that lately. It's been really busy, but I'll try to go to the gym 2 mornings a week, and I'm really going to try and protect that time. Or I'm going to take 1 day of the weekend and not do anything at all. Like maybe it's Sunday, maybe it's Saturday, but I'm going to close my laptop. I put some of my chats in WhatsApp, or I'll turn off the WhatsApp notifications for a day, and the peaks as well. At least once a month, I try to get out and do some sort of walk. There's walking groups that I'm joining. It's just, I think I'm trying to listen to myself more and say, how do I avoid the crash? Because what was happening for so long is I'd just like sprint. And then I'd lay on the sofa for 2 days watching trash TV. And then I'd feel bad. I told somebody the other day, I really do feel like one of my friends had a baby, and I said, I just feel like I can relate to you so much, because like I feel guilty when I'm not working on it, but I know I need this space away. I don't really sleep. I just don't. 3 hours a night's great. 5-hour nights, amazing. And I don't remember the last time I had a hot meal. And she was like, oh, yeah, maybe it is the same. You put your lunch down, and then somebody's this, that, and you just get used to eating cold meals. So I think it's figuring out how you can just feel better about what you're doing, or allowing yourself that space to do whatever it is that you feel you mentally need at that time.
Amazing. So TUBR, back sort of 5 years ago, we were looking at just solving the transport sort of data problem.
Yeah.
Sort of transitioning into 5 years later and where we are today. Who are the clients you're going after? Who are the businesses that TUBR solves problems for? Like, which verticals have you settled on? Or we always say as business people, my business can solve everyone's problems. We can go into every vertical, which in often case is the case, and I'm sure it is for TUBR as well. But what are your focus areas right now? We've discussed transport, we've discussed retail, but what are the big verticals that you're really looking at, and maybe the problems that you're really trying to solve at the moment?
We're really looking at like that experience economy. So 78% of people would rather spend their money doing something or having an experience like going to the coffee shop or going on that trip than on consumer goods. And so where we've narrowed down is kind of in the hospitality space, although if you look more of that experience economy space, that can touch into transport and those areas. So the big product that we're in the process of launching and bringing beta customers on right now is predicting like the operational needs and the little things like how many croissants are you going to sell? How do you avoid your waste? How many staff do you need on that day for cafes? So that's our clear focus right now, is working with cafes to help their managers manage the next 7 days better. And yeah, we have a couple customers actually starting using that product this week, which is super exciting. And we're predicting things like how many transactions and are they going to be drinks or mains, and they're using that to help manage their schedules.
Amazing. So I feel like every time you go into any sort of experience or shop or anything, you'll be like, oh, there's a lot of wastage here, and they should know that I'm coming in for this fish and chips order or whatever it might be. So what do the next 6 and 12 months sort of look like for you and the business? Where are you trying to take this business? I think, yes, you've had your roller coasters, and over a very short period, really, in the grand scheme of things, you've dealt with a lot of different sort of cliche occurrences, I feel, with investors, with co-founders, with external factors. But I'm not saying that things have settled down, but now you can call yourself a relatively experienced CEO. What do the next sort of 6-12 months look like for you?
Yeah, we have kind of 3 really clear goals. One is driving the growth of this self-serve product. We call it Pulse. So our target is to have 12% month-on-month growth starting kind of the beginning of next year. So over the next now till December, we're focusing on bringing on cohorts of beta customers there, business outlets. And then we'll switch our focus to working primarily with point of sale systems. So our go-to-market strategy is actually through the point of sale system. We partner with the platform, and then the platform can roll us out. That's how we access the data. We help them solve problems of being able to add more value to their customers. And then we are able to provide value to the small businesses below. So first, like the next few months is just all about getting our first 100 customers on the platform. We have 2 platforms that have already signed up to integrate us into their business. So by the end of this year, hopefully, if all of that goes well, then we'll probably have somewhere around 800 business outlets starting January. And then it's just the growth target from there. And then we are also raising a £1 million seed raise. We should be somewhere around break even, potentially touching profitability by the end of the year. So we're driving towards that.
Amazing.
Well, which is
Some
really
big
exciting.
milestones coming up.
It is. We paid our first VAT bill this quarter, and I hated it. I was like, wait, you're not giving me money back? This is not fun.
Yes, that is not
but
fun.
It's still
I
good.
agree.
It's exciting.
Yeah, super exciting. But if I was asking you to reflect on the sort of the last 5 years, and being a founder, as we've said, is not easy, but it's so rewarding at the same time. What bits for every founder, including yourself, would you put down to being more important to be talented, or would it be better to be lucky?
Does luck exist in this game? I'm not sure. I definitely haven't had any of it. I don't know that. I think it's more how you handle the situations than, well, again, it depends on your business, right? If I didn't have a really talented, amazing data scientist, then I wouldn't be able to continue driving this business in the way that. So from that perspective, like you obviously need the know-how, and the talent to actually build the product and drive it forward. But then but you can also hire really great people, right? And I think you can get those really great people on even if you don't have any money. There's ways that, stock options, there's ways you can benefit. So I wouldn't tell a founder, like, if you can't hire the great talent, that's it, you're done. Like, there's ways around it. So I guess what I think is most important for founders is the ability to problem solve, see the opportunity, be resilient, put yourself out there. I think everything really changed for me when I became okay to fail. Because if you're always scared of failure, it drives every decision that you make. If you're comfortable with the fact that you could be a failure, but you're going to learn a lot and gain a lot from it, then it's a lot easier to say, oh, I'm going to turn down that money and it's going to be a little harder for a period of time, but that's right. Or I'm not going to take that client because it's going to be too much of a distraction and too much of a pull on the team, or whatever that is. You just have to be comfortable to fail, in my opinion.
Awesome. Great answer. Dash, where can people find you if they want to follow along with your journey and also the business?
Yeah. Well, business, our website's TUBR.tech. And then there's ways to connect to me through there. And then LinkedIn, Dash Tabor. It's a pretty uncommon name.
Yeah, awesome. And that's TUBR, TUBR for anyone.
TUBR.tech.
Awesome. Right. Dash, you have been my everyday founder. Thank you so much.
Thank you.